Hello and welcome to Memphis. I'm Randy Buehler here with Brian, David Marshall. They are setting up the site around us as we film this on day 0 of the Magic the Gathering World Championships. Got some barbecue in us, got out to Beale Street. It's a pretty cool site. The player party is actually going to be at Graceland this afternoon, later into the evening. Bunch of storylines going on. What do you think's the highlight? What's the headliner for you?
Well, obviously the headliner should be the World Championship title. But
okay. Hard to know who's going to win that.
It's hard to know who's going to win that. The question on everyone's mind that I've talked to is the Player of the Year title.
Okay.
Who is going to be the Player of the Year? Can Shuhei Nakamura, with his 14-point lead,
he's got a nice lead
over Olivier Rouel, hold off Olivier Rouel, Luis Scott Vargas, Tomohiro Saito, and a dark horse? I got to tell you, a dark horse in this Player of the Year race. Marcio Carvalho.
He's on the Portuguese team, right? So he gets points potentially from the national team competition, which is something that Olivier Rouel has going for him as well.
That's the X factor in this race, is the two players who have an extra opportunity to collect points.
The other X factor I'm looking at, though, is LSV. This guy is on fire. He wins Berlin. He wins a Grand Prix. This guy, I mean, just you see players, they hit that run where, Magic, it's luck, you're shuffling decks, and, you see people, they put up results every once in a while, and all of a sudden somebody gets on a run, and, like Kai Bude will rattle off Pro Tour win, Pro Tour win, Pro Tour win. Finkel goes berserk, right? LSV has got one of those streaks starting to come together. People are starting to look at him as just one of the best in the game. Yeah. He could put up a top 8 here, and Shuhei could get knocked off that pedestal.
Right. He said it has a lot to do with playing good decks. He feels like he's never really played good decks before. Worked with a super team, so he's really reaping the rewards of his coalition of really great players around him. Him being one of those great players, but really working with a think tank of great players. We talked about them in Berlin.
Totally agree.
And you can hopefully see that come through with 2 constructed formats.
You got to like Shuhei Nakamura in the driver's seat, though. He does have, like we said, a 14-point lead over Rouel. It's 17 over LSV. Nakamura looking to be the 4th Japanese Player of the Year in a row. Right? It goes Bude, Nassif, Japan, right? So Kenji, Shato Nasaoka, and Tomohiro Saito.
Right.
Kenji, by the way, retiring after this event. Kenji Samura playing his last Pro Tour in a while. He's going to go to school for a couple years. He'll be back. He'll get into the Hall of Fame. He'll be around.
Right. He's clearly a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Kenji, I mean, he was one of the best players in the game for several years. Player of the Year title. He'd be a fun guy to have around. So hopefully he goes out in style. It'll definitely be a storyline we'll be keeping an eye on.
Speaking of the Hall of Fame,
yes,
we have Hall of Fame inductions going on this weekend. We're going to see Dirk Baborowski, Ben Rubin, Olivier Rouel, Mike Turian, and Jelger Wiegersma.
It's a great class.
It's an astounding class and an active class in a lot of ways.
It's
in
true.
Terms of Olivier, and to a lesser extent Jelger.
Yeah, still playing.
But, I mean, Olivier just got his 25th Grand Prix top 8 in the last couple weeks.
Does this be like the 3rd time he's finished second in the Player of the Year race? He's done it at least twice. We shall see. Team competition. Who are you looking for over there?
You got a handful of teams. My eyes are on Japan.
Okay.
To take the title back. The
Speaking of great Japanese players.
Yeah, Masashi Ueso, speaking of first ballot Hall of Famers.
Fair.
Masashi Ueso is leading the Japanese team.
Yep.
He's got last year's Rookie of the Year, Yuya Watanabe. The 3rd player on the team is highly regarded in Japan as the next Japanese guy that we always hear about every year.
There's 2 other really good teams, though, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's 3 and then a cut, in my opinion. The U.S. team, I think, is outstanding. Paul Cheon, Michael Jacob for the 2nd year in a row. Sam Black has been putting up, he won a car at Worlds last year.
Yeah, yep.
And then the French team, Olivier Rouel, Pierre Malherbeau, former national champ for them. So I think those 3 are the class. Carvalho on the Portuguese team.
Don't forget, we have a former team world champion member leading, or he's not leading, I'm sorry, he's on the Dutch national team. Robert van Mettenvoort is back. And I would be loath to discount the Dutch in a team competition.
Magic in the Netherlands, clearly. Yeah. I think it's going to be U.S., France, and Japan when it comes down to it, but we shall see. Definitely be keeping an eye on that. I think the formats are going to be really interesting this week, too. I mean, last Pro Tour, we were in Berlin, and the Elf deck just burst onto the scenes, took it over. LSV wins 6 of the top 6 decks in the Pro Tour. Right. Can people beat it? Now that they know it's out there, it's got the target on its forehead. People are going to show up knowing that the Elf deck is there, knowing it's one of the dominant decks in the metagame. Will it still be the dominant deck by the end of this weekend?
Very interestingly, last weekend, there were all 3 formats for individual competition at World Championships were in play last weekend.
Yeah.
You had Grand Prix Auckland, limited tournament.
Right.
Shards of Alara draft. You had the Philadelphia 5K Standard Open, which was standard.
Yep.
And quietly, you had the Winter King in Kentucky, which was extended. 83 players playing for $3,000. Not a small purse.
Right. How many
Played
elf decks in the top 8?
Zero. And
Crazy.
again, I have not seen the metagame breakdown, but according to one of the judges who was there, he's told me that it was, if not the number one of the top 2 archetypes in the field. The deck that won, Gift Rock deck, played by Robert Graves, with main deck Knight of Souls Betrayal. So
We will see.
that could be a sleeper deck in this event. That deck is good against elves. That deck is good against goblins. That deck is good against fairies.
I'll tell you one thing. There are a bunch of members of Magic R&D here this weekend, taking an eye, looking at exactly this extended format. Right, there's a banned and restricted announcement date coming up on the 20th. So right after this tournament, we find out, is the elf deck going to be the feature of the PTQ season? Is the elf deck beatable and just like a rogue deck for the PTQ season? We're going to find out this weekend, and that is the next PTQ season. So that'll be good to keep an eye on. Standard, everybody's going to be getting a fresh batch of standard decks, taking Friday Night Magic. Rookie of the Year competition, really close. I'm not sure we've seen a Rookie of the Year competition this close. Aaron Nicastri, 21 points from Australia. He's on the national team, so he's kind of got the edge. He's got a 1-point lead, though. Tim Landell and Tyler Manti sitting at 20 points. Jonathan Randall at 18
He's
on
also
his national team.
He's
from
captain
Great
of his
Britain.
national team, yep.
And I got to tell you, the best story for me, AJ Sasher, United States player, went to Grand Prix Auckland, flew to New Zealand because he needed 1 pro point in order to get to 15, to get to level 3, to get invited to come compete in this World Championship. 62nd place, $200, and precisely 1 pro point. Sasher will be here competing this weekend.
That's an exciting story.
Lots going on.
He was also the highest finishing zoo player, if you remember, at Pro Tour Berlin.
I do remember, right. That got him to 14. He's like, oh, maybe I can make a run at this, get to the next event, and here he is. So lots going on this weekend in Memphis. Brian will be here. I'll be here. Keep your browser tuned to MagicTheGathering.com. We'll have live coverage of the Magic World Championships all weekend long.